If you have ever recreated on a lake in the southeast United States, there are two things that you should probably know. One, that lake is not 100% guaranteed, but very, very likely to be man-made. And two, underneath that lake is likely the remnants of a town. And when I say remnants, I don't necessarily mean an entire set of buildings or a main street or anything, but I do mean old road beds, possibly even some archaeological artifacts that have been left behind. Artifacts. Words are hard. But anyway, today we're going to be looking at a few underwater towns in Tennessee specifically. This is a compilation of videos that I have previously put out on TikTok, but wanted to kind of put into a long form sort of thing. I do have the intentions to make longer long form videos on all of these towns, so let me know which one you want to hear about first that I need to dig even deeper into. And without further ado, let's get into all of these Tennessee underwater ghost towns. Back to Underwater Appalachia, where we discuss underwater Appalachian ghost towns. Today, let's take a look at the town of Willow Grove, which sits submerged under Dale Hollow Lake, which is on the Tennessee and Kentucky border. The Dale Hollow Dam and Lake was authorized by the Flood Control Act of 1938, and by 1942, the town of Willow Grove was completely submerged underneath the water. It was made by a dam on the Obie River in Clay County, Tennessee. The lake covers parts of Clay, Pickett, Overton, and Fentress counties in Tennessee, and Clinton and Cumberland counties in Kentucky. Willow Grove sat in the east part of Clay County, and it was named for the willow trees in the area, which is so cute. It was in the Obie River Valley, and it was on the east side of Iron Creek. Willow Grove was originally settled by 5 families who came down from New York. 4 of the 5 families were said to be the Edward Irons family, which is a cool ass name, the Barber family, the Hill family, and the Sproul family. It's said that they bought the land from the Cherokee tribe sometime prior to 1785, although there are no official documents showing the purchase. Cordell Hull, who was the Secretary of State to President Roosevelt, that is Franklin Delano, not Theodore, is said to have attended school in Willow Grove before he moved to Salina, Tennessee. And Willow Grove was not unlike towns of its day. It had service stations, churches, general stores, a gymnasium, and a pretty big school for the time. And Tennessee Highway 53 was a major thoroughfare that went through the town. However, we do know where this story ends because sometime in the early 1940s, the government started buying up the land in Willow Grove. And it's said that the residents did not take too kindly to this, which understandably so. Walking up to your door and seeing a note that says, "Hello, it's the government. We're buying your land and flooding your family home." But I digress. This town, as I said, was completely submerged in 1942. But one thing that's kind of bittersweet is that the community came together for one last town picnic on July 18th of 1942, and I thought that was very heartwarming. But what's even cooler about that is that former residents and now children of the former residents meet annually on Labor Day weekend to honor their lost town. On one website that I was looking at, it said that Willow Grove was known as the town that drowned, which if you're familiar with the story of Butler, Tennessee, you know that that one is known as the town that wouldn't drown. And I have a twisted sense of humor, so it just sounded very defeated. And that also, it brought up feelings. But although the town physically is underwater, hopefully we can help it re-submerge in our memories by talking about it and learning more about these places. That's it for me this time. Follow along if you like hiking, Appalachia, nature stuff, and sometimes I just post whatever I feel like that day. Okay, bye. Welcome back to Underwater Appalachia, where we discuss underwater Appalachian ghost towns. Today, I want to take a look at a town that was actually spared from the rising waters of Douglas Lake. Today, we're going to take a look at Dandridge, Tennessee, which is still very much above water. To understand why Dandridge was not flooded, we have to look at some of its history first. It's the second oldest town in Tennessee behind Jonesboro, and it is the county seat of Jefferson County. Dandridge was named after the first First Lady of the United States, Martha Dandridge, Washington. It was founded in 1783 and it was officially incorporated in 1799. Before Dandridge was even a town, the area hosted some pretty famous historical figures as well. Along the French Broad River, southwest of Dandridge, before Lake Douglas was created, there was a place called Zimmerman Island. In that area was a Native American chiefdom called Chiaha. Hernando de Soto spent some time here in 1540. And Juan Pedro built a small fort here near the main village of Chiaha in 1567. Now we're going to skip ahead several hundred years, and this puts us in the 1940s. There was a lot of dam building going on at this time for multiple reasons that included either hydroelectric power needs or flood control. Those were typically the biggest reasons. But there was a proposal on the table to dam up the French Broad River and create Douglas Lake. A little fun fact for you, the French Broad River is the third oldest river in the world, and it is beautiful. So this electricity was needed in World War II to produce aluminum and magnesium for warplane manufacturing. And in the initial plans, Dandridge would have been completely underwater. However, the citizens of Dandridge opposed the project and they were not going to go down without a fight, so they petitioned the First Lady at the time, Eleanor Roosevelt. And in their petition, they brought to her attention that Dandridge is the only town in the US named after Martha Dandridge, Washington. And wouldn't you know it, it worked. It said that Eleanor Roosevelt made sure that a saddle dam was built to protect Dandridge. And thanks to their efforts and to Eleanor Roosevelt, Dandridge is still a place that exists. However, that's not to say that there still weren't other things that became flooded under Douglas Lake, of course. A lot of farmland was flooded, including a few smaller communities called Shady Grove, Oak Grove, and Rankin. 33,160 acres of farmland were purchased to complete the project, and 525 families, along with 32 cemeteries, had to be relocated. But thanks to the $1 Million Dike, as it's called, the actual town of Dandridge stands. I found a figure for the total cost of the project to build Douglas Dam, including labor, materials, purchasing all of the land, etc. Like, this is the big number. And they paid $41,800,000 for it in the 1940s. And adjusted for inflation, that is approximately $830 million today. So almost $1 billion project. An awesome thing that I found in my research when looking on the City of Dandridge website was their town motto, which is, "We saved a place for you." Knowing the historical context about Dandridge, I think that that is such a meaningful and cool town logo, so hats off to whoever came up with that. Super clever and heartwarming. That's it for me this time though. Follow along if you like hiking, Appalachia, and nature stuff, and sometimes I go mildly off the rails and post whatever I want to. Okay, bye. Welcome back to Underwater Appalachia, where we discuss underwater Appalachian ghost towns. Today we're going to take a look at Big Creek, which sits under South Holston Lake, which is on the border of Tennessee and Virginia, but Big Creek was on the Tennessee side of the lake. Big Creek was an unincorporated town, and there's not a whole lot of information about it, but I did find some cool stories and pictures to kind of paint a picture for you about it. The area around Big Creek had schools, churches, graves, roads, everything that you might think of when picturing a town. Big Creek was not that far from modern-day Bristol, which is on the border of Tennessee and Virginia, and it was a popular getaway spot for the well-to-do people in Bristol at the time, especially at the beginning of 20th century. There was a resort there called the Big Creek Summer Resort that people could get to from a short train ride from Bristol. It seems that it was a popular area because it was a lot cooler there, and if you've ever been through the heat of a southern summer, I know that you know that sounds like a pretty good time. It was kind of a status symbol to have a home on Big Creek. There's an interesting story that I came across about a man known as Dr. Stanton. There is not a first name associated with him, he's just Dr. Stanton. He came down to Bristol from Lynchburg, Virginia, so that he could start a practice in 1919. And a businessman friend of him hosted him at his home on Big Creek. The businessman friend showed him a natural spring underneath a cliff, and this gave Dr. Stanton an idea. So natural healing springs were kind of a fad at the time, and he was like, hey, to the businessman friend, we could turn this into something. I could say that I've just found the most like pure healing spring on the East Coast, and we can turn this into a resort and make a buttload of money. I'm sure buttload was a really common phrase back in 1919. And they were gonna call this place Eureka Springs. Doesn't that just sound like a turn of the century tourist trap? But the businessman's high blood pressure was a problem for this scheme that they were gonna cook up. So he had high blood pressure, and the businessman went to a doctor in the area named Dr. Nat Delaney. And Dr. Delaney lent this man a book, and within the book there were some theories about high blood pressure, and it said that lying could cause high blood pressure. And in the back of his mind, this business guy knew that he had been lying a lot to people about healing powers of these springs, this resort that him and his friend were gonna build. And he also said that he could feel his blood pressure getting higher. So he tested his theory and was talking to a friend about this resort. He was lying about it, and then he felt his blood pressure spike, and so then he was out. Their little scheme was no more. South Holston Dam is a TVA project, or Tennessee Valley Authority, and its construction began in December of 1941, but it was suspended temporarily in November of 1942 because there was a shortage of materials during World War II that they, needed for the war effort. So construction resumed in 1947, and the dam was complete in 1950. And like many TVA dam projects, it was built for hydroelectric power in the area. It's a really cool and informative video on YouTube by Real Appalachia about the South Holston Dam, so definitely give that a watch if you're interested in learning more about it. But that's it from me. Follow along if you like hiking, Appalachia, history, and nature stuff, and sometimes I just kind of post whatever I'm talking about on a given day. Okay, bye. Thank you so very much for diving deeper with me today. If you enjoy videos like this, please do subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Instagram. You can follow me on TikTok, but I'm not really active on there anymore. And I will see you again in the next one. Bye.